Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Joanna Hernandez. Here's what we're looking at.
So nobody wants to come out.
How local businesses are feeling the impact of the Trump administration's immigration raids. Plus, we hear from people on the ground about how families are being affected. And the uncertainty of federal funding going forward has Illinois nonprofits concerned. We're back to kick things off right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
Latino neighborhoods are on edge amid increased reports of immigration raids by federal law enforcement agents. It's sparking fear in communities like Little Village and Back of the Yards. According to the Chicago Police Department, nearly 100 individuals have been detained by ICE. However, it remains unclear how many of these individuals had criminal records. We spoke with business owners in these communities about the impact they are seeing.
So nobody wants to come out. They want to be stuck inside, and they don't want to even send the kids to school, and I don't think that's right.
Veronica Perez, a lifelong resident of Little Village and owner of Jesse's Flowers, says sales have plummeted since President Trump took office. Perez says it's a drastic change she hasn't seen since the pandemic.
I walk on 26th Street and I don't see people, especially at night. 6 o'clock comes, not a lot of people.
As fears of ICE sightings spread, Jennifer Aguilar, the executive director of the Little Village Chamber of Commerce, says they are doing everything possible to mobilize and protect their community.
People expected maybe branded ICE trucks, and now we're seeing that it's all sorts of federal law enforcement showing up in cars that have tinted windows and are rented. So it's just new tactics that are being used that we didn't expect.
In the last 2 weeks, the neighborhood's 26th Street, known as the city's second busiest business corridor, has been described as a ghost town, a situation Aguilar says is impacting local business owners.
Businesses have been sharing that they have been seeing drops in sales from about 50 to 60%, especially during the weekdays. But weekends, which are the strongest, most packed days here on 26th Street, have also been affected.
Los Candiles is one of the restaurants.
Es como si estuviéramos en la pandemia o peor.
Clarita Lopez is one of the owners. She says lunchtime is typically their busiest time, but recently they've only served a handful of customers.
Yo creo que Trump prometió subir la economía y lo que está pasando es está bajando la economía, la verdad. Y yo creo que no sé, esperemos y no sigamos así porque entonces ya este negocio no va a estar abierto.
It's a family business she says has been operating in the neighborhood for over 29 years.
Nos afecta con documentos o sin documentos, yo creo que todos dependemos de todos, ¿no? Y la gente con el temor de que si hay redadas, que si están agarrando a la gente, a veces hay malos avisos, pero la gente les da miedo salir, la verdad.
In the Back of the Yards neighborhood, the manager of Supermercados El Güero y Mexico shares the same sentiment off camera. He says although sales have declined, he's noticed customers are coming in to purchase groceries in bulk to minimize the number of trips to the grocery store. Now he worries that fear in the community will lead to chaos rather than unity. It's a sentiment shared by others in the area, some of which have called Chicago home for decades.
It was first like, oh, we'll just come after the criminals, help us out, and then we'll leave everybody alone. But to them, criminals are just people who may have completely clean records, but just the fact of being here without the documentation is enough to make them a criminal. And I think that that's what's worrisome, and that's what puts everybody at risk.
Just yesterday, President Trump's press secretary said anyone who enters the country illegally is a criminal. To clarify, being undocumented is not classified as a crime under federal immigration law. In the United States, entering the country without proper documentation is considered a civil violation, not a criminal offense. And recently, we spoke with two individuals whose family members have been detained, and they shared that their loved ones do not have a criminal record. Now, these families are now facing the legal battle to fight deportation. Here with more on the local impact are Dulce Ortiz, board president of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights and executive director of Mano a Mano Family Resource Center. Laura Leon, an immigration attorney. And on Zoom, we have 25th Ward Alderman Byron Cicho Lopez, whose ward includes Pilsen. Thank you all for joining us. I want to start with you, Laura. As mentioned, being undocumented isn't a criminal offense, but a civil one. Why is it possible for ICE agents to make these arrests?
The reality is that immigration law, the wording of immigration law says that anyone can be detained. And unfortunately, previous administrations wouldn't enforce that to the full extent. But Trump will be and is enforcing this law to the full extent. So anyone who doesn't have a legal status in the United States is a target for these policies.
What would you say that creates?
That creates more backlog in immigration court. It creates more fear, more family separation, and obviously more work for us who are in the front of all of this, right? Helping our clients, advising them on what to do, but obviously representing the immigration court. Just to give you some statistics, right now there's about 3.5 million cases in backlog in the immigration court system. So think about adding more into that system. It's going to be we don't have the resources to be able to manage all of these cases.
So where would these people stay? The people who are detained?
So there's a legal process. People who are detained have a right to fight in immigration court. This doesn't mean that because you're detained, you're going to be deported right away. That's not the case. People who don't have a deportation order or who haven't been deported before can still fight in immigration court, can request a bond and then be returned to their family members and then fight in immigration court, but obviously still be in their communities.
And Dulce, some immigration raids took place today. Can you share with us, what was that like today?
Yeah, that's correct. Our organization did receive some information from community members. And so one of the things that we're trying to do, as a community-based organization that empowers immigrant families, along with being a member organization of ICER, is allowing our community to attend Know Your Rights workshops. In addition to that, obviously, we're trying to build a rapid response team. And what that entails is community members coming forth with information. We know that social media, things can get a little crazy and people can share, information that's not factual. And so we received that this morning. I actually was the one, me and another team member, that went to check it out. And in fact, we did confirm that ICE was in North Chicago, which is in Lake County. And they did pick up a community member there. We're aware also that they were making traffic stops. They did stop one community member. And unfortunately, I don't know what happened, if they did take him or not. But again, just knowing that they were there, we alerted our community members. We put it up on social media. And people are fearful, and for that reason, Know Your Rights workshops are super important.
I mean, as you saw, people don't even want to come out of their homes. Even when I was out in the street yesterday, they're not sending their kids to school. Now, you just mentioned you've been organizing Know Your Rights workshops, and the Trump administration border czar, Tom Homan, recently weighed in on them. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Sanctuary cities are making it very difficult to arrest the criminals. For instance, Chicago, very well educated. They've been educated how to defy ICE, how to hide from ICE, and I've seen many pamphlets from many NGOs. Here's how you escape ICE from arresting you. Here's what you need to do. They call it Know Your Rights. I call it how to escape arrest.
Alderman Byron Cicho Lopez, what is your response to what we just heard from Holman?
Well, I think, and I'm thankful for the organizations, neighbors that are helping during these times, that they're informing about the rights of all residents, independent of the immigration status. I think I'm proud to be in Chicago, in a sanctuary city that respects civil rights, human rights. The concern right now, of course, is that that is not enough. We have someone in the White House that is threatening to bypass the due process, the Larkin-Riley Act, for instance, to expedite deportations. More recently, they have talked about even sending migrants to Guantanamo. What we're seeing here is the criminalization of our immigrant community in despite of our index of criminality being lower than the average population. We are seeing fathers being taken away from their family, mothers. I just witnessed in Little Village the detention of a father that, again, had just a DUI back 12 years ago with no criminal record, and actually was trying to renew his work permit. I think what we're seeing here is unconstitutional. I'm glad the Attorney General is fighting. I'm glad civil rights organizations are fighting in courts, but it's not enough. We got to do it on the ground, not only informing our residents, but also mobilizing to protect our neighbors, the rapid response teams being know that we're present, but also the rallies and the mobilization of people to denounce these atrocities and the persecution of the immigrant community.
And Alderman, are you also seeing in your ward that people are rather just stay home than going out? Are you seeing that same sentiment in your neighborhood?
We're seeing in our enrollment, in our attendance for schools that have decreased for less than half of our children are attending schools in some cases. We're seeing also in medical appointments a decrease, also significantly less than half of those appointments in our free clinics here. We also see it in church attendance, in also in our businesses, as the chamber have said. So we're fighting with not only seeing what they're doing, but we got to be proactive. So tomorrow we're going to be in Little Village. We're going to talk about know your rights for businesses, for the workplace, in schools. We are urging legislators to pass more protections. Denver is already suing the federal government for attempting to enter our schools. We got to do more, and we're ready to coordinate with other cities, other municipalities. What we're seeing is inhumane, is unconstitutional, and is what dictators do. This is not what presidents do. Persecuting migrants, making this another industrial prison complex to exploit migrants, to benefit billionaires. This is not the America that we want for our kids. This is atrocious, it's wrong, and must be condemned.
And Laura, after, I want to ask, after being detained by an agent, what is the first thing an individual should do?
The first thing that they need to do is they need to understand their location. They need to know where they're being detained. They're going to be given a number that represents their case, so a case number. And they need to be able to memorize a phone number of a family member, someone they trust, someone they can call and provide that information to this individual. And that individual should know which immigration attorney to call so that they can start the process of representing them in immigration court.
And Dulce, in these ICE arrests, we've also seen former reality star Dr. Phil following agents as they make these arrests. What was your, reaction to seeing this being broadcasted?
It was really atrocious. As I said before, our immigrant community is being used as a form of entertainment. And this is really hurtful, because you're seeing, as the alderman said, we're seeing families being torn apart, and we're, being broadcasted nationwide for this administration's supporters, right? Because this is the platform that he ran on: mass deportations, anti-immigrant rhetoric, and the matter of the fact that this has ripple effects, as it has been said here. These families are human beings. There are violations of human rights here. And again, this is being used as a form of entertainment because that's what the president is and that's what Dr. Phil is. They're just forms of entertainment.
And Laura, very quickly, there's a lot of fear circulating. What advice can you give those who are being targeted and those family members or people who've been living here for decades in Chicago?
My advice is, if you are stopped by a police officer, you don't have to say what your legal status is. You can remain silent. If an immigration officer stops you through a raid or in the street through a traffic situation, you also have the right to not sign anything. So if an officer says, we're going to deport you, I'm not going to sign anything. I have the right to speak to someone. And so again, calling the family member.
Can they take you at that moment?
Yes, they can still detain you, but that doesn't mean you are going to get deported. But that also means that you still have a fighting chance in this country still. And that's what we need to remind our community. Do not give up. Do not sign anything. Speak to a lawyer. Find what options you have and fight for your case, fight for your families.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here today. Up next, how some local nonprofits are responding to federal funding concerns. Stay with us. Local nonprofits are facing an uncertain future. This after a wild week that saw the Trump administration pause federal grants and loans and then reverse course 2 days after following widespread confusion and legal challenges. The freeze threatened to hold up trillions of dollars in funding for basic government functions like healthcare, infrastructure, and support for children and veterans. While the order was reversed, nonprofits across Illinois are still dealing with the effects and wondering how stable federal funding is moving forward. Joining us to discuss this move and to look ahead are Adela Carlin, a Senior Director of Training and Community Partnerships at Illinois Partners for Human Service, Mario Perez, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Brightpoint, Marcela Rodriguez, Co-Executive Director of Enlace Chicago, and Cameron Zelaya, a Senior Policy Analyst at the Illinois Collaboration of Youth. Well, thank you all for joining us. There's a lot to talk about here. And I want to start off, as of yesterday, we know the order was rescinded, but it still caused panic and confusion. Adela, can you tell us what you heard from Chicago organizations during that time? How would you describe that time?
It was absolute chaos, and it was a very real reminder that health and human service organizations are undervalued, underfunded, and that we need to speak up, we need to act collectively. Some of the stories we heard from our coalition partners, which provide services like housing, childcare, food and nutrition programs, services for people of all ages, were that some organizations were planning to open programs to move into new spaces, and they had to pause because they did not know if they would have enough funding to pay their staff, to pay utilities to continue with the services. It was absolute chaos. We put out a call to action, and within a couple of days, over 200 organizations responded to share how concerned they were and calling on all of our elected officials to remember that the government relies on community organizations to provide these services.
Mario,
Yes.
I want to ask you, what communication did you get from the state and federal government, if any?
Well, we received a lot of information, like everyone else, through news and social media outlets, and that quickly translated up to our executive level team. And we did a lot of work to really make sure we were communicating back to our community and to our staff. And so, you know, there's a lot of fear and a lot of panic in our communities and in our organization. And so while Brightpoint is a very large statewide organization serving 3,400 Latinos across the state in rural and urban areas, it's really important to acknowledge that this fear is very real, even though we're a strong, stable organization.
Yeah, of course. And Cameron, we know that the programs your organizations run depend on federal funding. What would you say is at stake?
Yeah, what is at stake is, you know, serving children. The heart of our members is helping children thrive and succeed. And, you know, within the state of Illinois, roughly 20% of Latino youth are living in poverty. A third of Latino youth are living in houses that are burdened by high housing costs, that are receiving public aid. It's these families that we're trying to help lift out of poverty, ensure that they don't come into contact with the justice system, with the foster care system, or with community violence.
And you know, I'm hearing from all of you that just like the impact that it would have. Marcela, if this freeze were to have gone through, how would it have affected your organization?
Yeah, it would have affected us in many levels. We receive about 20% of federal pass-through dollars through state and city agencies. So it would definitely put put our services at risk. I think what's going to be really important, because even though the order was rescinded, I mean, we're still in danger of potential budget cuts across all of the work that everyone has mentioned. And so I think what's going to be important is for all of us to come together and really plan and have scenario planning, worst case scenario, best case scenario, and anything in the middle to be prepared in case budget cuts do come through, if freezes for payments do come through. There's a lot of agencies that have lots of dollars tied and waiting to be received as reimbursable. So I think planning is going to be very key.
Did you expect that this would happen?
You know, I think we learned from the first 4 years of the administration, right, and how volatile things are. I don't think anything should surprise us. I think what's going to be important is really being prepared, not to think of ways or get ahead of ourselves, but just be very prepared to be able to respond in the best way possible.
And Mario, as you mentioned, your organization serves many working families who depend on accessible child care services, families who are also undocumented. What's the broader economic impact of these nonprofit services?
Sure.
How do you explain it to someone?
Well, first of all, you know, at Brightpoint, our firm belief is that every child deserves a strong start regardless of their genesis story, and that we believe at our core. You know, at the end of the day, there is a lot of chaos and confusion that's caused, and so we know from the prior administration that this is not a mistake, this is a strategy. And so I think as important as this is, it's crucial that our community, which is under attack right now, ensure that we are not just focusing and reacting on what's occurring, but also looking over here to make sure that we are not missing some of the bigger systemic policy implications, such as health care, corporate taxes, taxes on the wealthy, LGBTQ issues. And so those are really critical. The last thing I'll say here is that the Latino segment of our population is the fastest growing in the state and country. And we are a huge economic generator. And so to not acknowledge that, and really legislators and the current administration really ought to be doubling down their investment here. And so I think by not doing that, we are probably sacrificing America's ability to really compete globally.
And Adela, can you share your personal experience that influenced your work?
I'd love to. So I know firsthand, I know what it feels like to wait in line to receive food at a food pantry. I know what it's like to worry that you're going to lose your home because your parents are too sick to work or they were laid off. And I also know what it's like to be afraid to ask for help from or the government because of your immigration status. But I live firsthand the importance of a community-based organization stepping in to provide those services and to help cover no person, no family should navigate those challenges alone. And funding community-based programs, it benefits every community, every person in our state, and whether that comes from federal grants or federal programs, the communities need them all around, and I know the value, and I'm committed to helping our coalition partners, all of you who are present here, to continue to advocate, to be vigilant, and to press for investment in health and human services in every community.
And Cameron, there are concerns that these programs could lose federal funding again due to the population that they assist. Are you sharing that same experience?
Absolutely. I think in your previous segment, you mentioned that we're seeing a rise in absences in schools. We're seeing that on the ground. Our members are seeing that not only on the ground into schools, but into the programs where they're offering services. Children are not getting needed services. Families are unsure if they should send their kids to school, and so they might not get school breakfast. They might not get school lunches. And then there's the matter of, is this going to be stable? Is this going to be an ongoing threat? Is this going to be something that is weighing down on the capacity, which is already relatively limited for nonprofit organizations that are operating at a shoestring budget? So yeah, very big concern, and it's going to create a lot of wariness when it comes to seeking additional federal grants to do additional programming for children.
And Marcela, how does this impact undocumented people depending on these services, especially in Little Village?
I mean, it affects in many ways, right? In the supports that they receive, in the safety networks that they've created, in the safe havens that they see in community-based organizations to have the supports that they need. Everything is on the line at this point in time. Like Adela shared her story, I think the other thing to look at it too is that our community, however, is resilient, right? This isn't the first time that we've been through issues like this. We did it the prior administration. We did it through the fiscal year 2015 budget impasse. We did it through COVID. And so I think that our community has shown a tremendous amount of resilience and creativity and coming together and supporting each other. But it will have some significant impacts in their everyday lives.
No, I also attended one of those programs when I was a kid, and that I benefited tremendously from that. And Mario, you know, what can people do to help? Those who are watching, what can they do?
Well, I really appreciate your story, and you know, we have a great alderman in the 25th Ward, which is where El Hogar de Niño is, which, as I mentioned, is a part of Brightpoint. And his chief of staff, Lucia Moya, was at El Hogar de Niño, and she matriculated through our program. And so They came back to El Hogar de Niño in January to read to children, and so it's a very inspiring example of the kind of impact that we have every single day. And I think what people can do is continue to pay attention, making sure that we aren't just reacting, but also making sure we're paying attention to some of the bigger systemic policy issues that are changing, and that we are cognizant of those changes.
Well, thank you all for sharing the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. You can stream Chicago Tonight on our at WTTW or YouTube channel every evening and catch up on any programs you may have missed. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Weekend Review. Now, from all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Joanna Hernandez. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that supports free educational initiatives in the legal profession.